Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Plain Time. I'm Ben Coleman, your anchor host for this program. We're coming to you live and in the clear, studios in Orlando, Florida, and we have a complete volunteer crew as usual. And if you missed my dissertation prior to this, I'm not going to say it again. We're going to make you go back and look at it. So we're here, how do I put it? And yes, I'm tapping on the desk. That's me. We're here to help the aviation industry, primarily in the area of aircraft maintenance, which is extremely, I'm not going to say underserved at the moment, but has the most opportunity for failure of any other segment of our aerospace industry. I'm going right out there and I'm hanging it out. And Ben, how can you say that? Because I just said it, because it's true. I've been watching this from age about 5. I've got a picture of me standing in front of my dad's Cub, and I'm in my little shorts and my little geek glasses, and I'm six years old. And that's how I learned aviation. I don't know any better. Aviation is all I know. And I've learned a lot because of that passion for aviation and flying. Maintenance is paramount to what makes everything tick. And when I ask a pilot if he's a mechanic or she is a mechanic, they say no. I'm so sorry to hear that. I did that this morning to Mark, one of our new volunteers. Fresh meat. Thanks for being here. And we don't realize that to be the ultimate airman, you've got to be a jack of all trades, a master of none, but the jack of weather, meteorology, whether it's navigation, maintenance, structures, security, and aircraft operations, of course, your physiological aspect. There's some days you don't really want to fly, and you need to ground yourself because you don't feel good. Anybody ever had a hangover? Do you think you were on your A game after a good bender, after a good football game or soccer, hockey, whatever sport you're into, and you're out visiting with friends and you're a social drinker, but you overdo it? I'm sorry, the next day you are not in a fit condition to fly. So you have to ground yourself from time to time. A mechanic as well. And there's so much that involves in our life, and I'm not giving you a life history thing here, but value and worth. What do you have, what do you share as a value? What is your worth? People complain about not making enough money in their job. I want a raise. Okay. What do you do? Do you contribute to the bottom line? Profit loss? In the aircraft maintenance industry, if you make a mistake out working on an aircraft, one minor little mistake can cost an entire day's profit. In some cases, entire week's worth of profit in today's dollars. But it's, and just a little example, I was hired to go and take a look at an airplane. It was going to make a special flight. It had landed, one of its right main gear collapsed, and it went down the right wing, and it caused a little bit of damage. It was flyable damage. The aircraft was fly-worthy with a run out on the engine and a fresh prop. It was fly-worthy. Wasn't airworthy, but fly-worthy. And the folks that went and put the prop on it and got it ready to go said, "It's all ready to go, Ben. Just look it over." And I said, "Okay, if it looks good enough, I'll fly it out. I don't mind." Got there, and on this aircraft, the exhaust system is on the right side. The aircraft went down on the right side, and the runway reconfigured the tailpipe. It bent the heck out of it, and it ground it down and bent it to the point where there was only about, I'd say, 15 or 20% of the area of an exhaust was clear. And these guys were getting ready to hop in it and go fly. Well, they would have burned up valves because an engine is a big air pump. Even though the pistons are sitting there doing their thing, for a reciprocating engine. But if you don't have that flow through the engine, it's going to back up. And your exhaust valves, things get hot. Cylinder temperatures 1200, 13, 14, 1500 degrees. It still depends on that airflow, even though it's hot air, to cool, literally, the exhaust valve. When you're not getting that flow through the engine, you are going to burn a valve up because that heat is going to propagate and you're going to have an engine failure. So I had to get out there with a pair of pliers, literally, and bend and open up the exhaust port to where you had some flow. Something that minor, what was the worth of them paying me, I don't know, $400 to go down and look at the airplane? It could have cost an engine, could have cost the crew, could have cost the entire aircraft flying back over the Everglades. So value and worth. So whatever you're paid may not be exactly what you're worth, but there is value there, and make sure that whatever you do it to the best of your ability with the most amount of training and to make sure that you're comfortable and proficient at what you're doing. And that's the big thing. We're going to get into, that's enough of my pontification this morning, but aircraft maintenance is a valuable point of our industry. And the only way to get some of this information across to you is through education. Some of it's self-education, but most of it is formal education in an educational environment. And that's the reason that we're so proud to have with us today the superintendent of schools of the Polk County school system. And that's Mr. I'm going to do it right now. Everybody's getting ready to scramble and go to camera 2 for a welcome to Mr. Fred Heid.
Very good. Thank you.
Hey, Fred.
Good morning.
Are you up for it?
I am.
You seem up for it.
Yes, sir.
I like your haircut, and I know
Thank you.
Your beard here is a little bit more developed than mine. I'm in the fuzzy stage right now, if you will. But tell us a little bit about your beard.
So the beard right now, United Way is hosting a fundraiser in our county. Any opportunity I have, I commit myself at least once, if not twice a year, to help generate revenue. Earlier this year, I was able to participate in a local program and raised over $10,000 to benefit our students and community with hearing assistance. And so this is a United Way fundraiser. People have the opportunity to basically vote whether or not I have to keep the beard for another couple months or if I can shave it. Mrs. Heid has already said that we will go bankrupt because she will make sure that no matter how much money is donated for me to keep this beard, that it will go away. So unfortunately, we'll not get to see the Duck Dynasty version of this beard. But that's the fundraiser, and it's a great opportunity. And it's a great way for me to give back from my perspective, and especially somebody in my position. It's an easy way to partner with our community. So,
well, Fred, for one, I think the way that you've colored the gray in there, that there's good products on the market these days that put that gray in there because the ladies love it. It's that salt and pepper beard. Superintendent of schools.
Yes, sir.
And I promised I wasn't going to put you on the spot. So that's whenever I say that to you, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Absolutely.
Superintendent of schools, I made a little note here. You oversee everything.
That is correct.
And that is a perfect opportunity. And by the way, how long have you been in this job?
Just about 2 years, just short of 2 years.
Okay. You know that you are the hero and you're also the scapegoat. If it goes well, you can just thank Fred. Fred is a visionary. He's done a great job at this. If it goes down the tubes, that damn Fred, we got to get rid of him. We've got to find a new superintendent.
There is no truer statement in education. Having worked in districts both here in the state of Florida and outside the state, I'll use snow days as a great example. We used to operate by what we call the rule of 50. 50% of your community loved you and 50% of the community hates you for calling a snow day. And that's just the reality. Any decisions we have to make that ultimately are my decision or recommendations I make to the school board, we try to do the best we can to make sure that we have researched them thoroughly and that they're the most appropriate decisions to best support our students and staff. It is not an easy job. And I do oversee every aspect of the school district. Clearly, I have staff who help assist me with those efforts. I have a deputy superintendent. I have a chief of staff. I believe in what I call a two throats to choke kind of approach in leadership or my management structure. So the deputy superintendent, who's over here, oversees everything on the academic side. He supervises principals, he supervises the curriculum teams, the assessment teams, the data teams, anybody who also has an ancillary support for direct instruction. So for example, my IT, and even our IT network team is divided into two sides. So part of them are basically data management and cybersecurity. The other side is instructional supports to best benefit our teachers. And then I have my chief of staff who oversees, he's the second throat, and he oversees everything on the operations and finance side. And as a collective team, we manage everything from school bus transportation to food service, supports for special needs students, after school programs, athletics, arts, dance, all of our career academies, and we'll have a great opportunity to talk further about one of those here with the Central Florida Aviation Academy, and then student enrollment. And there's a lot of other federal and both state mandatory reporting things that we have to take care of, compliance things that we have to document, and so you're responsible for a great deal, but I will tell you, there is simply no better job. I have been in public education now over 24, 25 years, and I tell you, I love coming to work every day. I've never found myself sitting in the parking lot gripping the steering wheel saying, Lord, get me through this day. It has its unique challenges. It definitely has its ups and downs, but it has far more ups than downs. And the best thing about my job is the opportunities I get to really interact with our students in a meaningful way and watch them truly shine and just flourish. And when you see that light bulb moment go off in a child's head, there's nothing better. And I constantly remind our team, and our team is 14,000 employees. And I constantly remind them, no matter what role you play, you are changing the trajectory of a child's life each and every day. And that is a unique opportunity that you have. And so you need to seize every moment and every day to make that happen. But everyone's equally important in our organization. So.
Well, you just mentioned, and this is a perfect segue. It's almost like we rehearsed this. We didn't. Ups and downs. And it explained to me, it did explain to me why Fred is so supportive and passionate about what we're doing here at the Florida Aviation Network. He comes from an aviation background. Who'd have figured? Your dad, and I guess your brother's still involved in it now.
My brother no longer, but my dad has retired. Both my father and my stepfather were Air Force. And as I shared a little earlier, my father, when he left the Air Force, went into aviation engineering. And he was one of the first engineers to help design and construct flight simulators. So he ended up traveling the world, and he'd be gone 6 to 8 months at a time. And then after several years of doing that successfully, having worked for, oh goodness, I'll throw out some old Florida names. You've got Air Florida. You had your Easterns, you had some of those, and National was his first company he worked with. And at some point, he was tired of missing his kids. He has 2 children, myself included, and wanted to be home more often. So he came home and decided to go into the rotables and avionics side of the industry.
Now, Fred, rotables. Not everybody understands what rotables means in aviation.
So your hydraulics, your
things that you have
wings,
to rotate out over a period of time.
Actuators, and then there are certain times, depending on the type of, I'm assuming depending on the type of plane, I'm not that familiar with personal aircraft, but they have to do their C checks or their D checks, and then based off that, you basically put together a kit for those rotables to be replaced. And he got into that side of it, was very successful. I worked for my dad during the days and worked in the bar restaurant industry at night. And
as a patron or as a server?
I was security.
Okay.
I was security.
Well, you were there to keep me from getting out of hand.
That's exactly
okay,
right.
Right.
I was too big to be behind the bar, is what the manager used to always tell me.
Okay, that's good. Oh gosh, and I tell you, we mentioned briefly in our discussion the ILS system, and this isn't not the instrument landing system.
No.
ILS, International Logistics.
I believe that's correct.
International Logistics System.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your experience with ILS.
So every time my father, to build a business, you have to buy in surplus inventory from others who are going out of business or buy new components. And so every time my father would purchase something new, basically I would get the list of all the parts, and I'd have to put in the part numbers, their serial numbers, put in the description, and then put in the quote price, whether it was being sold new, whether it was being sold as a repair, or being sold as is. And then that becomes the advertising. So well before the internet took off and you had your eBays and your Amazons, you had an ILS system in the aviation industry that you relied on very heavily. Because even internally, even within a small area like Miami, where we were off the Miami International Airport, there were times where we may have listed a part, that part may have subsequently been already swapped, and now it's sitting at an avionics shop waiting for a repair or to be bench checked. And so then you have to go out to the ILS system and find it someplace else. But it was a great system, but very much reliant. It's a dedicated piece of equipment in the office, and I will tell you, many a days I was frustrated because it doesn't always catch all your typographical errors, so you had to be a little bit more attentive to detail.
Well, and you only had to do it like 2 or 3 times a day.
A little more often than that
You had
sometimes.
literally hundreds,
Yes.
if not thousands, of
Yes.
entries to make on
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
And I tell you, from an operations standpoint, and again, this was before the internet days, and after my NTSB days, I went to work for a 707 operator, and I tell you, they come into the office and say, "Oh, start valve number 3 on ship number 188 is down. We got to have a replacement."
Yep.
You go into the ILS and you just find out who has the start valves, and you may have been one that we would have contacted and see if you had one that's serviceable. You can buy them repairable. You can buy them new. But yeah, I tell you what, it's just, the industry is just full of just little side stories like that.
Absolutely.
Fred, tell us a little bit more about the impact, and by the way, thank you very much for being a sponsor for Plane Time.
Sure.
and for all the things we have going on at Florida Aviation Network or FAN. Sun and Fun is right around the corner. And we want to thank you for your last trek to be a guest on our set there. And we almost, I got to tell you this, Fred tells a lot better than I do, but he was on the phone, "I'm running late, I'm in traffic." He didn't realize that it was that vast of a traffic jam going to Sun and Fun. And he was in a Polk County school system vehicle. He's plastered all over the door. And he was in touch, I guess, the sheriff's office, or
Correct.
and saying, "Hey, I'm stuck. I'm supposed to be on site in 10 minutes." And she said, "Well, just pull up on the sidewalk and just drive around all the traffic." Fred said, "No."
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. As the new superintendent in a school district driving on the sidewalk to get past all these people, I was not prepared. I had heard since I'd arrived about CFA and its popularity, but I will tell you, until you pull up and you literally see miles of cars making their way to CFAA, it's really when it strikes you that it is really that popular and that impressive of an operation. And I did. I miscalculated my time for arrival, and I was stuck in traffic. I was calling everyone to be respectful and say, "Hey, I'm just not going to make it, or I'm running late. Can you push me to another segment?" And you guys were very accommodating. Thank you so much. But the sheriff's office did. They said, "Listen, Mr. Heid, we'll get you here. Just pull up on a sidewalk and don't worry about it." And I said, "No, every one of these people I pass has a cell phone camera. I don't want to be on tonight's news." And
Yeah, look at that son of a bitch going around. I'll take his picture. We'll get his ass.
and then the other option was they were going to send 2 or 3 units to come get me. And I said, "That's just as distasteful as driving on the sidewalk." So ultimately, they got me on a side road, and an officer got me to the site. This year, we have a much better plan. We're either going to get Sheriff Grady Judd to fly me in on his new helicopter, or they'll get me in by vehicle. But I'm hoping it's the helicopter route. So.
Well, that would be an arrival, but that would probably have the same outcome. Look at that son of a bitch coming in a helicopter. Who does he think he is? Fred, it's if you haven't guessed by now, we want to deliver a message through all of this bantering back and forth, and it's not every day that you have the superintendent of schools to kind of get to know both personally and professionally. And we have to keep that element of personality involved in business or we lose it all. It really is, because sometimes and there's both good and bad personalities. Yes, believe it or not, there's some people that don't like me. But it's just because they don't know me. And this is where you have an opportunity. If there's somebody that don't like you, turn them around. And it's an opportunity to turn that corner. And we all have something to contribute. And particularly in the second segment, and I'm really kind of getting this all juiced up for you of what Fred is doing to actually help our industry. And but we're not going to share it with you right now. We're going to save it for second segment. But Fred, if you haven't guessed, we talked about this briefly. I'm not a yes man. And in some cases, I'm not employable, because people, all they want is someone.
Sure.
And I use that, say, well, what do you mean, Ben, you're not employable? Well, you have trouble walking, or you have some dexterity problems? No, I tell people what's on my mind, and I believe it. And, well, that's not bad. It is if you go to work for somebody that likes to tell you what's on your mind.
Right.
And we have to get back into the corporate attitude, if you will. And actually, Polk County, it's a corporation.
Absolutely.
It's a business. 14,000?
14,000 employees, $2 billion operating budget, $2 billion plus operating budget.
Well, the folks at the top, and every now and then, you got to have checks and balances involved.
Absolutely.
And the folks knocking off the big payroll, getting paid way too much. I mean, what is your product at Polk County School System?
Student outcomes, graduate diplomas,
Okay.
industry certifications, diplomas. You know, for us, we strive for, and people have asked me, what's the one thing I hope to accomplish while I'm there? I want our diploma to mean something to the point where when our students leave the dais, that there are people cheering and clamoring and fighting for those candidates, either for the military, for a trade, or for a college, or something else, because they're that high caliber. We don't need a certificate of completion. We need a diploma that means something, and for me, that's what we're striving for every single day. But we're also striving to give children options. These young adults need to understand, because we did for a long period of time forget or sideline career tech ed and other types of academy programs to simply focus on a college readiness mentality. And there were reasons for that, but now that we've shifted back, we're finding that that gap we've created has created some real systemic issues for all the trades across the board. And so I believe we have an obligation to make sure that our students understand that the earning potential is there. There are great lifelong careers that they can enter into with promotional opportunities as well. And you can combine the two with college if you want to move into management or other aspects of your profession. But I think we have an obligation to make sure that they know that those things are available and that we provide a wide variety and we eliminate as many barriers as possible that serve to potentially prevent them from participating in these programs.
Mm. Well put. And Fred, I'm not trying to feather your bed here, but they did choose the right person to come and take over at this time, because we're at a critical. We got a critical mass going on here as far as the entitlement culture, if you will. And I'm not going to get political, but I guess I already just did. So we have a lot of folks that don't really fully understand the value of their time and their effort. And it's through programs that you are manifesting and supporting and driving. How do we keep the personality of making it fun? I mean, for example, my brother-in-law is a plumber. And there's a lot of people that plumbing is really not something that they probably would enjoy doing. Unstopping a toilet, part of the job. Replacing a water heater, part of the job. And however, if you do it well and you really understand your trade, it's not that hard to do unless you don't know how to do it. And anybody have a problem, got guests coming over for the holidays and your sewage system backs up, that's a problem. And are you going to get out there and pump your tank out? Doubtful. So you got to know who to go to, and if without people in that trade, you're a victim of your own circumstance of not planning ahead or having a redundant system. But plumbing, welding, some of the other aspects, automotive repair, and we're going to get into that in segment 2. But what are some of the other things, Fred, that you can see in Polk County that you're able to help? And we just mentioned another a big industry is the steel industry.
Correct.
STEEL, not steel chainsaw, but the steel industry.
Absolutely.
And I was blown away by some of the figures. Tell me what a figure, and we don't have to name names.
Absolutely.
But somebody out of high school, what can they make go to work for steel?
A student with zero experience could walk into that industry with training from the company and make $80,000 a year starting salary. And I will tell you that when I say that, and I've been sharing that just for last week and a half, I shared it at the principals meeting, and they all started to murmur, and I said, no, you don't seem to understand. I get to apply before the rest of you, because that's not far from a principal's salary, and with considering all that they have to deal with. And it's a reality that the trades out there are very fruitful. You mentioned, plumber coming on a holiday. The upcharge to come out on a holiday after hours? I mean, the trades are truly a great opportunity for our students to thrive in. And we're starting to see that. And what keeps that going, and you mentioned, it's really the teacher aspect. Here's the interesting thing. We all remember our favorite teacher, and we all remember the teacher we hated. Mm-hmm. And the difference between the two was their personality and how they approached us and how they treated us as individuals. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's the key factor, is we have to bring people into the trades that are very knowledgeable, highly skilled, but have a way to convey it and collaborate and build relationships with our students that they see it as a great opportunity. We need people to market it in real time just as much as they're teaching it in real time.
Fred, I tell you, this probably is going to be one of my more enjoyable and favorable interviews, because we're talking about things that aren't always tangible. Yep. And as far as the likes and dislikes. And I just will tell you that you're not always going to be the best liked, but you got to be personable, and you got to put your passion into it. But you got to have something to thrive off of. And a lot of people, they're very introvert. You got to be a little bit of you got to be a lot of an extrovert. Sell yourself, marketing. Absolutely. Who's gonna market Fred Heid better than Fred Heid? Who's going to market Ben Cole? O.B. Young. He's the marketing master of how to get things done, because he knows how to make people like him. And I've seen him make people hate him too. But anyway, that was on purpose, because they deserved it. So, but the thing is, marketing-wise, and I would like to learn more in the second segment about what you guys do for marketing. Absolutely. In the second segment. But absolutely. Fred, we're going to kind of wind this one down, and we're going to hit it right on the mark, because OB2 told me if we didn't hit it on the mark, he was going to take me out and thrash me. So we're going to sign this one off, but don't forget that you do get wings credit, because we're talking about a lot of wings here on the Plane Time. FAA Wings program. The code will be announced at the end of the second segment. And third segment, maybe it's the third segment that we're going to have for the Wings program. But and that was just this little voice that I get in my ear that correct me when I screw up or make a mistake. So, but bottom line is, Wings program credit, a very, very valuable program in industry. We thank you. Hang around for other segments.